This is my last video before I turn myself in.
So this is Eugene Henly Jr. He's known for previously managing music artists like the late Nipsey Hussle. He's an entrepreneur, community activist. Pretty much he wears a lot of different hats. That's why it might come as a huge shocker when the feds named him in a sweeping RICO indictment called Operation Drawdown. I'm Elizabeth Millner with Law&Crime. Now, before we get into this case, I want to tell you about something really exciting at Law&Crime. We're launching a new channel called Scandal that's dedicated to exposing the dark side of fame, covering all the wild crimes in Hollywood, and diving into the disturbing rumors floating around celebrity circles. Now, to stay up to date on all the latest celebrity scandals, click the link in the description of this video and subscribe to Scandal today. So back to this story. The indictment against Big U is more than 100 pages long. Now, in their case, the feds say he ran a mafia-like enterprise. He's accused of murder, kidnapping, embezzlement, robbery, and extortion. And that's just to name a few. Now, Big U claims he's innocent, but if he's convicted on these charges, he's facing the rest of his life in prison.
I just need y'all prayers. I need y'all to... I don't even know what to say.
Big U seemed to be on the right track after an earlier stint in prison. He turned himself into a community activist, specifically an anti-gang activist. He reportedly helped launch Nipsey Hussle's career. He was a music exec, so it seems like he was doing a lot of good. But according to the feds, while he was playing the role of community peacemaker, really he was an active gang member for the 60s Crips. And not just an active gang member, he ran it. So the investigation was years in the making. According to his complaint back in 2021, an FBI task force launched their investigation into his alleged criminal enterprise and its association with the Rollin' 60s Crips. The feds claim Big U's association with the gang has been ongoing since the 80s, where he earned the reputation of being an enforcer. But here's the thing, they claim Big U ran his enterprise separately from the Rolling 60s. For example, the indictment says Big U's enterprise purported control of Los Angeles. Individuals including professional athletes, musicians, and others who came there for business were required to check in. So what does that mean? Well, according to the feds, the check-in included payment to the Big U enterprise, as well as requesting permission from Big U himself to conduct certain activities, including acts of violence that were sanctioned by the Big U enterprise. The indictment even points to an appearance Big U made on the Nothing is Something podcast, where he stated if you choose not to check in, you suffer the consequences. Another example the indictment points to is the attempted murder of rapper Quando Rondo. You know, the alleged murder for hire plot that has rapper Lil Durk locked up now. According to Big U's indictment, Quando Rondo didn't check in, and as a result, his cousin was killed. Federal agents allege while Big U's enterprise has a history and reputation to control LA through violence, fear, and intimidation, Big U simultaneously attempted to create an air of legitimacy. How? By promoting himself as a reformed gang member who focused on bettering his community through his nonprofit like Developing Options. And it appears Big U was doing good for his community. It began in 2004, and essentially the organization had a mission to decrease gang activity and empower the kids that lived in LA. But here's a big problem. Federal agents allege he embezzled money meant as a charitable donation and used the nonprofit entities to fraudulently apply for government assistance and loans. So I gotta mention here, obviously, when you're accused of running an enterprise, you probably can't do it alone. Big U isn't the only defendant in this indictment. The feds named Sylvester Robinson, aka Vay, Mark Martin, aka Bearclaw, who according to the Developing Options website is the vice president of the organization. The indictment also names Tremaine Williams, aka Loose Cannon, Armani Affalege, aka Monty, Frederick Blatton Jr., and Tiffany Hines. So Big U, Vay, and Bearclaw are accused of RICO conspiracy. Loose Cannon is accused of interference with commerce by robbery. Armani Affalege is accused of transportation of an individual in interstate commerce with intent that that individual engage in prostitution. Meanwhile, Frederick Blatton Jr. and Tiffany Hines are accused of bank fraud. The indictment alleges Big U, Vay, Loose Cannon, and Bearclaw committed and arranged robberies to enrich the Big U enterprise. It alleges Big U, Vay, and Bearclaw extorted individuals in LA for purported protection. It also alleges Big U defrauded various companies, donors, athletes, and celebrities. So another example is Big U is accused of pocketing more than $100,000 in donations to Developing Options. According to the LA Times, in August of 2019, NBA star Draymond Green donated $20,000 to the nonprofit. But Big U allegedly embezzled that donation by putting it into his personal checking account. Shaq also donated $20,000 to the organization and the Crenshaw Rams youth sports team, but most of that money also went into Big U's personal account. According to FBI Special Agent Andrew Russa, the LA mayor's office is supposed to oversee the program, and they should have rejected developing options. Now, why would they reject an organization intended to do good? Well, because each contractor needs to pass a lot of requirements, like background checks, training, approval of employees, stuff like that. But according to Agent Russa, developing options failed to do that. He wrote, quote, "Based on my review of documents in the course of this investigation, developing options appears to have failed to comply with some or potentially all of those requirements." So that's a lot, right? But Big U is accused of more than just that, like murder and dumping a body in the desert. According to the indictment, on January 20th of 2021, a rapper only known as RW recorded a diss record. And who was he dissing? Big U. Referring to Big U as bro, that makes some money. And that unnamed rapper may get shot in the face for thinking that his use of the studio and representation by Unique Music is funny. But the track was eerie given what happened next. Just days later, the rapper was shot in the face. But it's unclear if Big U heard the lyrics before the murder. Federal agents allege Big U was the only one with the motive to murder RW. So what exactly happened? Well, according to witnesses, RW was in Vegas, and who else was there? Big U and Vay. Investigators noted Big U's phone location data and witnesses showed he arrived to Vegas at an Airbnb. On January 24th of 2021, Big U arrived to a studio and RW was there, recording until around midnight. A little after 12:30 a.m., Big U left the studio and his phone stopped reporting his location. About 45 minutes later, surveillance video at the Airbnb showed RW exiting the passenger side of the car and entering the Airbnb. A few minutes later, he left the Airbnb with a suitcase, got back into the car, and left. All of this time, Big U's phone wasn't reporting his data. Likely it was turned off, but then it started again at 2:15 a.m. And here's the thing, RW wasn't seen again. He wasn't even supposed to leave Vegas until the next day, but he never returned to the Airbnb. Instead, his body was found on the side of the road near Interstate 15. Investigators say he died from multiple gunshot wounds. They also noted he wasn't dressed for the weather. Remember, it's late January around this time. DNA collected from around his ankles pointed to RW being dragged into the desert off the highway. Witnesses told detectives an associate of Big U removed the video recording equipment from the studio a few days after the homicide, including video that would have shown RW and Big U at the studio before he was murdered. And there was probable cause to conclude that the footage from the DVR system would have shown an altercation between Big U and RW on the night of January 24th. And it seems Big U switched up on the rapper's extended family too. The victim's aunt told investigators she confronted Big U about arranging her nephew's trip out to Vegas, which Big U admitted to, according to the indictment. And Big U even called her on a weekly basis prior to the murder, then stopped after the murder. And after she confronted him, she never heard from him again. Again, this was back in 2021. But remember how I mentioned this was a years-long investigation? By 2023, the feds were conducting a wiretap on Big U. He allegedly ordered witnesses not to speak with police about the murder. Like I mentioned, it's a lot. And when the indictment came down, federal agents claimed Big U went on the run. Then he published a series of videos to Instagram swearing by his innocence.
This is my last video before I turn myself in. I'm with my family. Talk to my sons, I talk to everybody, man. I'm just going to deal with this fight, see what it is. I just want y'all to know, all this stuff is quagmire. Shit is all bullcrap. I just need y'all prayers. I need y'all to... I don't even know what to say. Now, 21 years, I elevated my family, come back, sit in here and write and do what I need to do until I can come back home. People are supposed to help me, I hope you help me. If you can't, you don't worry about it. A lot of stuff y'all hearing is straight trash. And I appreciate the love and I appreciate the people who've been helping me. I don't know. It's hard helping black people and not being hunted for doing it.
First Street, it might be to, I don't know if it's to the right or the left.
Reach out to anybody who can help me, y'all.
You hear me?
Help my own family. Appreciate y'all. Go. I'm looking at this video as I come in to turn myself in, and I'm disheartened by the fact that they trying to say that I stole something from Developing Option, or I used Developing Option as a front. Developing Option paid my bills. They paid my house note. They paid the bills for my family, the money I made as an employee for Developing Option. I never mixed that with nothing. I didn't manipulate nobody. I didn't steal nothing. We did PPP loans. We did 2 loans. And that's it, just like everybody else did. I didn't use no fraud. I didn't give none of no fake names. And one of them we was paying back and one they forgave. You know what I mean? And the other one we attempted for and they didn't give us nothing for it. I filed my taxes and them coming around telling me I was using Developing Option as a cover. Cover for what? None of that's going to be true. None of that's going to be true. The government putting this big picture, they going to arrest 21 dudes. Some dudes I don't even talk to. I don't even know nothing about. So how the hell you going to lump me in with all them? But it's all the big picture, though. It's all the big picture. Now I'm going to be sitting in here. It's going to be years out of my life. Then you going to get dudes who I don't even talk to. What they going to say? You ruining people's lives. I heard it's over 21 people that's been arrested. It's wrong. It is what it is. Church, just pray for me. Just pray for me, pray for my family. And you look at what we did. You look at what I did. I've been home 21 years. It ain't over, though. That's what it's not. Blessings.
And he had more to say, comparing his case to Young Thug's, but alleged music manager Whack 100 is working with the feds.
I'm looking at all these charges on the news. I'm headed back to LA. And then I'm looking at the people they arrested. How you gonna go arrest people that I don't even talk to? That's a built-in liar right there. You know what I mean? So, is that how they gonna work the case? Everybody know I don't with Kenny. Everybody know I don't with Brick Baby. So if you went to arrest certain dudes, and put them next to me, them is the dudes you gonna have to call themselves turning against me. Well, ain't no turn against me. I ain't going for that. You might as well go get 600 and whack. These dudes been saying I did all year. So what they doing is they go on the internet and these dudes say that I did shit on the internet. Then when you say I did on the internet, they go investigate it. Now you raiding my houses, raiding my shops, raiding all this stuff. And talking about I'm committing crimes and covering up with Developing Option. What crimes am I committing to cover up with Developing Option? You know what I'm saying? I ain't committed no crimes and covered nothing up with Developing Option. It's crazy. But this how they get you. They get 1 or 2 people to say something. Ain't gonna be no real evidence. Ain't gonna be no real nothing. It's gonna be a repeated thug. It's gonna be a bunch of people in jail for a bunch of different crimes that don't have nothing to do with me. They finna lump all of us up and say it's all around the 60s. Watch and see. We just seen it with Thug. I'm finna experience the same thing out here. I knew it was coming. Now they on there saying all this stuff to assassinate my character. All right, man, just pray for me. And again, they can do any one of us. It ain't nobody safe with these dudes. If these dudes feel they want you, how they going around talking about somebody's gonna raid my house before my house get raided? How they there with the police? And y'all sitting there following them. Everybody that's a part of them shows, and 100 shows, and all them shows, and y'all need to, everybody who following them, promoting them, anything. Y'all wrong. Y'all ain't black. And y'all show ain't for our people. They can put charges against anybody. So this is gonna probably be my last video. I'm gonna go turn myself in to see what's going on. They talking about I'm a fugitive. So they just raided all my houses. 600 was actually with the police when they raided my house. And he's actually got video and footage of it. So y'all know what y'all dealing with. And I just want to say this to y'all. When they raided my houses and my property, they was asking about whack, loose cannon, 600, and this internet stuff. All of y'all filed. All y'all who be sending shit around the internet, all y'all who be promoting and listening to what these niggas saying, all y'all giving these likes and hidden likes, all y'all supporting this. All y'all guilty of this. If you had something against a black man, you should handle it with a black man in the streets. Wack said 100 times he was gonna take my contracts. He working with the FBI. The FBI went to the city 3 days in a row and told the city they didn't want nobody to give me no more money. They went to all the different celebrities and told all the different celebrities, don't give me no money, don't help me, don't do nothing for me. They going around scaring and intimidating everybody. But y'all sitting it around getting people in trouble. Like y'all don't understand what the FBI do to black men who try to help their community. I ain't been nothing but a help to our community. But I guess it is what it is. This the price of being black and trying to help somebody, trying to help your community and do what you can. You just guilty because somebody else don't like you and they go on the internet and do what the they want to and y'all gonna promote it. It's crazy. But I'm going to go turn myself in though. Cause I ain't did nothing. This fact is, man, they done went to my house, kicked my houses in, bust my doors down, bust my windows. They calling my son at his football practice, threatening him. You know what I mean? These dudes tagging him. What kind of is this? But y'all gonna be rolling with these dudes. And I got this last thing to say. Wax said he was gonna destroy developing option, right? So who gonna replace developing option? Which one of you in the 60s gonna call yourself coming in? Because whoever try to come in, y'all the ones that's working with Wack. Believe that. So remove me to get me out the way for somebody else to come in who gonna cooperate. That's what the play is. That's what the whole play is. I'm out. I'm gonna send y'all videos to put up, all of it until they lock me up.
Now, WAC 100 denied that he was working with the feds. As for Big U, federal agents say he did eventually turn himself in. But by that time, Vay and Bearclaw were already arrested, and 18 other Rolling 60 Crips and associates were federally charged. Big U was ordered to remain behind bars pending a detention hearing in federal court at the end of the month, and no plea has been entered yet. He's expected to be arraigned on April 8th. There's so many allegations laid out in this indictment. Let's bring on Detective Eric Barnes. Eric, it's always great to see you. Now, I do want to mention to our viewers, you don't have involvement in the case, but I got to know, what's your reaction to the indictment against Big U? He's accused of murder, running a mafia-like enterprise, and that's just kind of scratching the surface.
There are so many details to unpack in this indictment. Very well written, very well laid out, and definitely when you read the indictment, it definitely gives you a different picture than, what Big U has displayed over social media and across the media networks.
Yeah, and it feels that way too, especially because it seemed like he was doing so much good. Like he had the youth programs, the food drives, the mentorship. But according to the feds, on the flip side, he was still involved in, the life. What do you make of just kind of this double life that the feds allege that Big U was doing?
Well, it's been seen sometimes that people have a hard time cutting ties with some old friends and maybe even old habits that may drag them back into that lifestyle. Now, what remains to be seen is, how these alleged crimes connect back to other individuals from his community. But I think that there is so many details that you have to. It's definitely worth to look and just to say that maybe there's more going on than what he wanted to admit.
Yeah, and one of the things that kind of stands out in the indictment, amongst like other things, is just kind of this fear that he allegedly invoked on people in Los Angeles, like requiring people to check in with him for protection, or even these relationships that he had had with like celebrities, athletes, and rappers. But then at the same time, is accused of embezzling their money, including from big names like Draymond Green and Shaq. But what do you make of just him using these relationships to kind of prop himself up, but at the same time, kind of pull a double side and just kind of allegedly embezzle from them too.
I think everything is so close knit in the world of entertainment between rap icons and music legends and also sports icons. You hear often that rappers all want to play sports and professional athletes all want to be rappers. So I think it's all one and the same when you look in the entertainment world, because the money that you make gives you access to different types of people. And some of those individuals, if they still have ties to the criminal world, it's going to eventually show itself.
And do you think that he may have pulled the wool over their heads by kind of acting like their friend, but at the same time allegedly pocketing their money?
The first thing that I thought about when I read the indictment was, they mentioned all these other gang members that he was associated with. And, the entertainment check is not going to be enough to support all of those people. So, I mean, if they're going to be part of the entourage, he has to find a way for them to eat. And for what it sounds like, it was criminal activity.
Yeah, and to, run an alleged RICO enterprise, or what the indictment says, the Big U enterprise, obviously you're going to need a lot of people, and a lot of people that you may have known from the old life, a lot of people that you just feel more comfortable kind of, sharing more details of your life to them. But what do you make of just kind of what the feds are alleging as far as just the organization of this alleged enterprise, and just the fact that, a lot of people are also swept up in this indictment too, not just Big U?
In terms of just sheer power, they always say there's strength in numbers. But I think in terms of committing crimes, that also plays against you. There's more eyes, more ears, and more mouths that are involved in the business of whatever Big U enterprise may be. And now when you talk about RICO indictments, that means everybody that's part of the indictment is liable for every single charge that is in that indictment. So if the lower hanging fruit, or the guys that had maybe the least amount of criminal culpability, now those guys are in a position where they have to do what's best for themselves.
Yeah, and speaking of that, when you're having an indictment of this sort, it seems like, the feds are going to need witnesses, or cooperating witnesses, excuse me. What are your thoughts on potential informants that may have been, in that organization potentially?
Anytime that a RICO indictment comes up, you have to have information from the inside at some point, and it could come from different sources. It doesn't necessarily have to be an informant that's mentioned in an indictment. It could be someone that they've dealt with in the past that's renounced the gang lifestyle, but they definitely have to have someone from the inside, or someone that was in the inside at one point, to kind of give insight into what was really going on.
Yeah, and I'm sure, when the feds come knocking and they're asking what happened when and where, and you're facing what could be the rest of your life in prison, I feel like it might be easy to understand why it might have been easy for, witnesses to kind of come forth and explain why this happened, or what happened when, to kind of piece together more for investigators. But, I can't emphasize enough how this indictment kind of reads like a TV show or a movie, and there's so many allegations in it. But I want to talk to you about the murder of one of the rappers that was signed to Big U's music label. Now, Big U is accused of murdering him seemingly over a diss track. He allegedly took the body out to the desert, disposed of him, then allegedly threatened witnesses not to talk about the rapper's murder. Now, the rapper wasn't named in the indictment. We only know the initials being RW. But what do you make of just, him? And this was back in 2021, but what do you make just of the allegation of the murder in retaliation for this diss track? That, it's just so much that I just can't emphasize enough. It's a lot. But what do you make of it?
Well, murder is one of the predicate offenses that the Department of Justice allows you to use whenever you're indicting someone for RICO. And I think the murder itself is, the highest charge. Is the in terms of most civilian eyesight, it's the worst crime that could be committed. And so when you talk about someone losing their life, and inside a structure, inside an organization, and the person that is allegedly responsible for it is the top guy, it just goes as to show that this is why these organizations can't exist. You're basically untouchable within that organization because out of fear, no one else wants to be next. And so I think that with indicting so many people, prosecutors will probably get more details on that murder if indeed it did occur.
And do you think that's why it took so long? This murder happened back in 2021. Do you think that's why it took so long for the indictment to come down? It's 2025 now. If they had enough back in 2021 or 2022, even 2023, why not, arrest him for murder and then continue to build the RICO case? Why wait until 2025? Is it just so that way all the ducks were in a row for them to bring these charges against him? Is it because they may have feared he may have fled? What are your thoughts on just why it took so long for them to bring about this murder charge too?
I think definitely with cases like this, because they are complex in the nature, someone that's cooperating today may not be cooperating tomorrow. And then as an investigator, you have to go back and prove the information that you get. You have to go back and corroborate it and make sure that someone's not just telling you something because it's in their benefit today. You have to actually go and find facts to support this information. And I think that when you're working on dismantling a close-knit organization, people don't want to talk about those things. One, out of fear that they may be involved and may catch a charge involved with it, but also the repercussions that may take place out in the neighborhood.
Yeah, those repercussions, including the check-in, including, there being consequences if you don't check in. If you believe what the feds are alleging in this allegations, I can understand why, a lot of people may have been fearful of Big U and just what could happen to them as a result of everything. And he's facing a lot of time behind bars now, possibly up to life in prison. But he claims he's innocent. He made those statements in a video as he was turning himself in. What are your thoughts on just, Big U claiming he's innocent, but, this is a lot of allegations and this is from the federal authorities. What are your thoughts?
I watched a press conference and it seemed that the assistant United States attorney was very passionate and very convicting, in terms of his beliefs about the indictment. So that would lead me to believe from an outside perspective that they have some very solid evidence, enough that, they're willing to disclose so much. And I was really surprised that Big U went live on his way to jail. I think that at this point, as in most situations, there's nothing he can say across social media that's going to help him fight his case. If anything, I think it gave credence to the fact that, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And I just didn't, I was surprised by that.
Yeah, me too. And then I thought maybe he just wanted to give reassurance to the kids that he had helped, along the way too, to maybe put some ease in their minds as far as, the allegations, because it can be kind of scary to think about, like a mentor that you had that you had thought was doing good for you to come up, have these allegations put against them. Maybe it was a way for him to kind of just kind of save face to the kids that he helped mentor along the way. And speaking of that, what do you think will happen to the programs? Because, again, he seemed to have been doing good for the community, to be doing good for the kids in LA. But what do you think is going to happen to the programs that he had helped found in light of these allegations?
That's very interesting. I hope for the kids and the families that are involved. The neighborhoods that a lot of these programs take place in are subject to high crime. There's a lot of violence that takes place in the neighborhood. And so their day-to-day lives deal with being victimized just by some factors in society that we're working on fixing. And when someone steps up from the neighborhood to be a part of the solution, it's just kind of disheartening to hear that potentially, the funds that were given to help people in the community to make lives better could have been used for criminal activity, which results in the community being torn back down and taking several steps backwards. So I hope that wasn't the case, but it's just very disheartening to hear that.
Yeah, it's just completely disheartening because, that's what my mind goes to, is just thinking about these kids and hoping that, programs like this can still exist and hopefully something better will come out of it as well, too. Detective Eric Barnes, I always love having you on and I always appreciate your insight. Thank you so much for being here. Before we sign you off, though, what do you think is going to happen to Big U down the line?
I think Big U is going to go through a series of debriefs with his attorney, and also I think that depending on the type of evidence that the U.S. Attorney's Office has, I think this case will move pretty fast. It seemed that there were several law enforcement agencies that were involved in this investigation. There was aspects of money laundering, embezzlement. Also, you have your violent crime, and I believe there were several different types of drugs that were seized in large quantities, firearms. And so I think this case will move pretty fast.
Yeah, and it seems like either way, it's going to be a long road ahead as well, too. Again, Detective Eric Barnes, thank you so much for being here. I always appreciate your insight.
All right, thank you.
And again, Eugene Henly, aka Big U, hasn't entered a plea yet, but he claims he's innocent. Right now, he remains in federal custody, but his next court date is slated for March 31st. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Millner.